Welcome back to the Brothers Mahoney. This is Michael.
And I am James.
And today we are discussing the Christmas Invasion. And this is, of course, the first Christmas special of NuWho, airing December 25th, 2005, which it's amazing you think this is almost 20 years old.
Time flies when you're watching Doctor Who.
Apparently. And this was written by Russell T Davies.
Apparently time hasn't flown that much.
You are indeed not wrong, but what is the plot? Not that we necessarily need it, but what's the plot of this one?
The plot is as follows. It's Christmas Eve and high above London, the alien Sycorax are holding the Earth for ransom. The 10th Doctor must recover from its regeneration in time to save the human race from slavery. And really, is that so wrong?
Yeah, and this has David Tennant playing the 10th Doctor. And this came out, what did you say, like a month or so after Born Again?
Yes, it came out just over a month after the Children in Need Born Again sort we have previously discussed. The first time, basically, that we saw David Tennant as the 10th Doctor in action.
Yeah, and we also get Billie Piper as Rose. Honestly, this episode has a lot of the old classics. We have Noel Clarke as Mickey, Camille Coduri as Jackie, the return of Harriet Jones, played by Penelope Wilton. Then a handful of smaller but still semi-important names to be mentioned. We have Daniel Evans playing a Daniel Llewellyn, and he's sort of, what's he do? He's sort of like the head of the space probe, like the guy who's in charge of that team.
I forget exactly what his title was, but he was the hard scientist, I think, of the space probe that becomes so important in this story.
Yeah, it's a space probe that's supposed to be showing some of the first footage of Mars around Christmas time. So it's one of the things which it almost feels like an old time type thing when everyone's around the TV watching us make contact.
Yeah, I feel like if you do this type of story today, it would not be shown in the same way.
Yeah, it's no way.
They might want to portray it as though everybody's standing around the TVs watching in awe, but they'll be on their smartphones. It just would not have the same feeling.
Yeah, they just have to edit it down to like a TikTok short. We have Adam Garcia playing Alex Klein, and I forget what his position would technically be, but he pretty much just follows Harriet Jones around and does things.
I mean, he's her political aide, isn't he?
I guess. I was just going to say that she hands like books to him and stuff, but he probably does more important things.
Well, I'm sure he did more than just hand her things, but even if that was all he did, I'm sure he still had the title like political aide.
And either way, he did it with style, so there you are.
He was indeed pretty suave.
And lastly, we have Major Blake, played by Chu Omambala. And he didn't necessarily do a ton in the episode, but I think he was a steady presence. And he had a few good lines. It's more than nothing.
Yeah, he never really did all that much, but he was fine. I think technically it's strange. He was an official of unit, though he never really seemed like it. At least not the unit we've grown to know throughout Classic Who. And I realized they didn't really touch unit in any way that felt like unit until I would argue season 4.
Yeah, I was going to say they were a bit cagey about that type of thing back in the day.
Why, they had to change the name of the entire agency because they got a cease and desist letter from the UN or something to that effect.
Yeah, you're probably not wrong. I just can't imagine necessarily a ton of people watching would have noticed that.
No, but you know how these people are with like copyright and whatnot.
Yeah, and I have to say the first thing that I really thought was worth talking about when it comes to this episode, and I have to say I've not seen this one, it seems like for a really long time, so it's nice to revisit this one. That's just a classic feel to it. But the first thing that really stands out to me is that it takes something like 40 minutes for the Doctor's regeneration process to finally, I guess, allow him to become his new self. It feels a lot more like sort of the type of thing you'd see in Classic Who, in which his post-regeneration takes him out for like a good half the story. And I think the best case example would be something like Castrovalva, though you saw how it treated him in, what would have been the Trindalama?
No, the Trindalama, everybody hates you in that one. Trindalama, best episode of Classic Who, find me.
Sorry, it's the best story of Classic Who.
You're the one who said it, not me.
There you go. So I sort of appreciate a sort of a slower take, and I think it really works because of the supporting cast. You have Rose, Mickey, and Jackie here. And I think because they're such strong characters, we don't mind setting the Doctor aside for like 40 minutes and just following these guys around. It just works.
Yeah, this is what you get to do when you were able to set up the supporting cast throughout an entire series. Now, we didn't see Jackie and Mickey in every episode last season because if I recollect correctly, we saw Mickey in 7 episodes of the 4th season and we saw Jackie in around 6 of them. Because we saw them so often, we were able to know what they were like as people. So the stronger you make your supporting cast, the easier it is to set aside. And this is setting aside the Doctor, setting aside David Tennant, who went on to become one of the most popular doctors of the modern era. But they were able to set him aside successfully because of how strong Jackie was, how strong Mickey is. I think that's a real testament to the writing around this time. And I do think this episode and this era just really does stand up very well.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think of more modern day post-regeneration troubles. If I recall, did the Charles Doctor have some issues in Deep Breath?
He had some issues, but he was still up and about. Now, the episode was also like this one a bit longer, but he was still up and about, certainly, I think, before the halfway mark.
Yeah, he may have been up and about. I'm not sure how sensible he was half the time.
That's very true, but he was still technically doing things, like stealing coats from poor people.
Well, I was going to say, I do remember only vaguely, but just him terrifying a homeless guy. Good times.
You know, that scene was actually quite hilarious. Deep Breath, I like it a lot more now than I used to, but that scene's always been kind of fun. The homeless guy is not really jiving with this fellow he's meeting.
But yeah, I appreciate how they take their time with this post-regeneration, how we get to sort of follow Mickey and Jackie as they're preparing for Christmas. And on a side note, like James mentioned when we were discussing the season finale of season 1, it's technically been like 5 or 6 months since Jackie or Mickey have seen Rose, but for Rose it's been, like 25 minutes?
Yeah, that sounds about right. Maybe even less, honestly.
So I do like a nice Christmas-themed holiday type thing coming on here, and we have all of the type of stuff you would expect. The presence of the Sycorax, spinning killer Christmas trees, all types of joy.
And most importantly, we get our first appearance of Merry Christmas Everybody by Slade. This is a 70s Christmas song that was extremely popular when it was released in 1973. And it's been used in the revival of Doctor Who, at least 8 times since this episode?
Yeah, I'm going to say yes, but I'll be like 1,000% honest. I almost never notice a song when it's playing.
See, and for me, it's one of my favorite Christmas songs, so I just find it so catchy. There's a reason it's popular when it came out.
Well, because it was the 70s and everyone was high.
I mean, listening to this while high might be a fun time. To me, it's such a catchy song. It barely feels like a Christmas song, but it's just so poppy and 70s. It's just steeped in hysterics.
And I forget, did that song pop up when Mickey was doing some mechanic work? Like one of the few times you've actually seen him doing that type of stuff?
Yeah, he was just working on a car. The song is playing on the radio. And like this may have been Christmas, but this is the UK. It wasn't exactly all the snowy or anything. But the song was just playing on the radio. And he hears the TARDIS noise pop into existence. So he just literally leaves his job, wish he could do that, and runs off towards the TARDIS same time as Jackie does.
You know, I have to say, I actually really appreciate that scene because it really indicates how localized this is. I forget where exactly Mickey lives, but I have to imagine he doesn't live too far away from Jackie. And his workplace is like probably equidistant from where the TARDIS lands to where Jackie lives. So I just sort of appreciate how localized they are in that area. It just sort of adds to the, I don't know even know how to explain it. It's just a sort of a nice comforting thought that's also localized in that one area.
Yeah, no, it's hard to explain, but I completely understand what you mean. It's a very homey feel.
One of the best examples I have of that would be the 1981 slasher, The Prowler. I mean, just look at this poster and tell me you can feel the homeliness. You want some nice localized action? Check it out, bruh. That's your horror recommendation of the episode.
I mean, technically speaking, Michael does write some horror movie reviews, so we could start doing that, but I don't think we're going to.
Be ready. So, not only is Christmas time about, but we also learn that Harriet Jones, who last popped up in World War III, of course following Aliens of London, Harriet Jones has become Prime Minister. And suddenly Jackie seems to be okay with her because apparently she's making 18 quid more a week. Now, I don't know how much 18 quid is, but hey, I guess it's good stuff.
Which is even more interesting to note, because in today's exchange, that would just be $24, and I'd assume it'd be less, hypothetically, back then. But again, it goes all the way back to Rose. The family isn't even middle class, or our middle class was supposed to be back then. If the family's middle class, it's only just middle class. They're living on a council estate, and $24 a week would actually probably be a real benefit to somebody in Jackie's position or anybody living in a place like that. Because it sounds like such small change, but that adds up.
Yeah, and of course, when the doctor talked about Harriet Jones before,
yes, I believe he called it Britain's Golden Age.
So I imagine Jackie's not the only one who's seen a nice economic uplift, so it's nice to think about. Shame it doesn't last. Wink, wink. That doctor ruining the poor and middle class.
To be fair, this doctor pitched the Lord and Time Lord, so...
Yeah, you're not wrong. So yeah, Harriet Jones is now Prime Minister. I have to imagine she is quite popular, and she's probably a pretty good leader. And it's a good thing they have her because the Sycorax are here, and they do not seem a particularly playful bunch. The probe that gets sent to Mars is supposed to be showing footage, of course, of the Mars landscape, but instead it was intercepted by a Sycorax ship, and so instead of seeing some of the red planet's natural beauty, we instead see what looks like... I sort of appreciate the Sycorax designs. It doesn't look nearly as alien as it could have, but I think they do a good job with it. And the speech, of course, it's given a speech in its native language. It gets translated in a somewhat amusing scene. And it's not a holiday greetings.
It is for the Sycorax, but I don't know. One of the fun things about the way this episode is structured is the first, I would say, 10, 15 minutes even, we might see hints of alien things happening with the whole pilot fist, for example, which is so random. Because I'm not even sure they were sent by the Sycorax, at least it didn't seem like they were, this last waltz. But maybe they had been. But the first 15 minutes is mostly just character story between Rose, Mickey, and Jackie trying to deal with what's going on with the Doctor, who was, of course, recently regenerated, and is just lying in what could be a deathbed. They're trying to help him, but they don't know how to help him. He's unconscious, and they're just trying to figure out where to go from here. But it's also Christmas time, so Mickey and Rose are going Christmas shopping together, trying to think of what to pick up. It's just such a nice feel to this part of the episode. And then, of course, when we see the Sycorax, that kind of gives an episode shift. All of a sudden, we're seeing UNIT. We're seeing the Prime Minister need to work to try to figure out how to deal with the situation. And the Sycorax, according to the translation Michael referenced, I mean, you can't argue with them. The Sycorax rock. They say so.
That they do, and nothing rocks more than taking a third of the human population under control. Because apparently they use... And this is sort of funny. When the probe was sent up, of course, you see all the time, there's a bunch of things in the probe, things like music, usually something like Beethoven or something, and famous paintings and such, just as a way to help aliens understand humans if it happens to make contact. They also happen to have a blood sample, and it was an A positive sample, which then the Sycorax used to take control of all of those on Earth with A positive blood. So well done there, bruh. And what they use this for is to sort of take everyone with that blood type to like high buildings or to the largest of high structures as a way to intimidate and ideally get the humans and those in power to take the demand seriously, which, well, as you can imagine, it works.
Yeah, it's very similar to, and I don't know, maybe spoilers, depending on how you want to look at it, but it's very similar to a plot point in Stephen King's Tome of the Century, a 1999 miniseries that featured a mysterious person coming to a small island in 1980s Maine during a huge storm that's about to happen. And it's, 4 hours long? There's a lot to it, but there's a similar aspect to that as there is what's happening with this blood control. Because as the Doctor says at the end of the day, blood control is just a cheap bit of voodoo. Because while it looks all scary and frightful, according to him anyway, the Sycorax world, they actually have been able to make these people jump off the buildings. So basically, the Sycorax are weaker than the Mad Hatter, if you remember Gotham. And really, who wants to?
Yeah, which is all well and good. But of course, most people would know what the Doctor knows. So, yeah, it may not necessarily be as dangerous as it looks, but almost no one's going to know that. It just gives more power to the Sycorax. And while all of this is going on, and on a side note, now I don't know the statistics behind this, but Mickey, Jackie, and Rose should be lacking none of them were A positive. But while all of this is going down, while Harriet Jones is sort of running around with the unit trying to figure out some solution, the Doctor is just, as he's been most of the episode, just unconscious. One of the few times he pops up for a few moments of awareness is when, after encountering these robotic, as James referred to them, pilot fish, what they were looking, I forget, I don't have it written down. They noticed the time energy or something of the Doctor's, like regenerative energy, and they were sort of coming toward it for some reason.
Yeah, see, that's the part where it's a little unclear because I'm not sure if they were sent out as probes by the Sycorax, or if they were kind of there on their own accord, just trying to home in on the regeneration energy of the Doctor.
Yeah, because the Sycorax later get the TARDIS because I guess it is related to the energy. So they want it for some. I'll be honest, I actually forget why they want it.
They grab the TARDIS because they recognize it as alien technology on Earth, which at the time Rose was kind of messing with it, so it's exuding signals, which the ship was able to pick up. And they were thinking maybe it was a trap planned by Harriet Jones.
And actually, speaking of traps, that Christmas tree though, because Jackie gets a mysterious tree, and I have no idea how this necessarily went down, but Jackie gets this mysterious tree, and them trees be attacking, bruh. In one of the funniest scenes in the episode, and I've always appreciated it even when I was a kid, this Christmas tree just starts spinning and really fucks up the apartment. Like, think about all the repairs that Jackie has to do now.
Yeah, no, it's a good thing she's getting that 25 quid a week, or 18 quid a week or whatever, because she's going to need it. But no, that scene always spoke to me as well. I believe her mother quite liked it too. It's just absolute absurdity. You see this spinning Christmas tree just lands at Jackie and whatnot. But hey, that thing would hurt if it got you. We saw it rip apart walls. So if you can think of what that would do if it got into a flash, it's a good thing it didn't.
Yeah, and it didn't because the Doctor, I guess, subconsciously hearing Rose's pleas, briefly woke up, used his sonic screwdriver, took it out, and then just collapses again. So funny. But hey, here's there when he was needed.
Yeah, but he only collapses after, basically, Jackie refuses to let him answer what he actually needs.
She was trying to be helpful. She's just going through every possibility.
Yeah, except the Doctor might have been fine if he had been able to just say he needed a cup of tea. But who knows? Maybe it only really worked after it hit parts of the TARDIS.
Hey, he got it in the end, that's all that matters.
It just seemed very reminiscent of a scene between the 10th Doctor and Dana in Season 4 in The Unicorn and the Wasp. So they knew they had a good thing when they did it here, and they kept it in the back of their minds. How is Harvey Wallbang a one word?
Yeah, and on a side note, keep in mind that while Jackie has encountered the Doctor multiple times before, it's the 9th Doctor. So this is her first time with the 10th Doctor. And she does wonder, upon learning that he has two hearts, what else he might have two of. So there you go.
Well, there was a strange, mysterious man in her bedroom where anything could happen.
Yeah, while nothing happened with the 9th Doctor, maybe Tennant is more in line with that type of, shall we say,
proclivities.
Well, of course, the 10th Doctor actually is among one of the most well-known Doctor's first romantic entanglements with companions, so it sort of works out.
I mean, even besides that, though, look how quickly the 10th Doctor, once he's out up and about, one of his first actions as Doctor is he just has a Christmas dinner with Jackie and Mickey and Rose. The 9th Doctor never would have considered that.
In fact, doesn't he even say, like, oh, he doesn't do Christmas dinners or something like that? There's some line from, I can't remember what Doctor it was, to be honest, but it's just something they, quote-unquote, don't do.
Well, to be fair, it sounds kind of Capaldi's. But also, it very well could have been at the end of the Aliens in London World War III two-parter. Perhaps Rose had invited him over for dinner, and he's just like, oh, I don't do dinner. Oh, I don't do family. Something to that effect. And obviously the 9th Doctor had been through so much, it's not too surprising.
So yeah, while everyone is worried about families and friends who are just standing on latches of like tall buildings, The doctor's unconscious half the time. Harriet Jones even goes on TV and makes a address to the nation and asking for the doctor's help. And if anyone happens to know where the doctor is, to try to get the doctor in touch with her so you can help out. Which I don't think Rose even attempts to do, mainly because the doctor is just unconscious and couldn't really help anyway. But I have to imagine if Rose had reached out, Harriet Jones certainly would have taken that call.
Yeah, no, UNIT would have been there in a second to get the doctor to a medical facility to see if they could help him. Like, literally, they would have been there in less than 5 minutes. We saw how quickly they were able to surround the TARDIS when Jackie called in Aliens of London.
Yeah, but I guess on the upside, they don't necessarily need the doctor because instead they have some mysterious thing called Torchwood. And of course, this is the second reference to Torchwood. There's a brief reference to them during to the weakest link that Rose was playing back in, or would have been Bad Wolf.
Yes, in the first part, Bad Wolf.
And there it's just listed as, I think, some type of Earth organization. But here we find out that it's apparently something quite secretive because though Harriet Jones knows about it, apparently prime ministers aren't supposed to know about it. And not only that, but also the United Nations doesn't know about it. So Torchwood is a mysterious hombre.
And we might or might not find out more about them in the future. Hashtag Torchwood Series 2, let's do this.
Yeah, and all that we really know about Torchwood following this is apparently they have some laser thingy.
It mentioned that some alien laser weapon was dug up at some point and that Torchwood was able to reappropriate it. But obviously, when Harriet's mentioning that, she doesn't tell the Doctor who was able to do so. I mean, we've seen the season before. The Doctor doesn't even meet somebody he knows is actually Torchwood until the series finale, does he?
I honestly couldn't say. I haven't seen most of the season in so long. I'll just say yes.
I also haven't seen it in a long time, so it's going to be fun watching this, because I'm pretty sure that happens to be the case. The Torchwood is basically following him, not intentionally, but throughout almost all of these stories, and that he doesn't even realize it's all happening in the background.
Yeah, and we find out what that laser beam does at the end of this episode. But before that, we do see that Harriet Jones goes up to the Sycorax spaceship with, I believe, both the Major and, despite him being a civilian, since he was in lead of the probe, that Llewellyn guy also went up with her. And I think Alex is also there because he's been running that translation program so that the Sycorax and the humans can actually, I guess, talk. Not that it really matters, because it doesn't necessarily seem like the Sycorax care that much. But hey, it still works out. And yeah, the Sycorax don't seem particularly interested in treating the humans with some type of newfound, hey, here are new species, let's help you out, bruh. It's not where the Sycorax are coming from. As the Sycorax tells Harriet Jones, either half of Earth's population is sold into slavery, or a third of the population dies. Of course, that being the A positive, who are just inches away from jumping to their deaths. So hey, either half goes into slavery or a third of the population dies. Harriet Jones has a choice to make, and it's not an easy one.
But it becomes easy when Rose comes to save the day with a very heartfelt speech that makes the Sycorax turn towards the light.
Boy, does that not work. Hey, but she tries.
I mean, I know she didn't get her A levels, but she could have done better than that. She was basically just blathering on about all the random tidbits of alien lore she's picked up while traveling with the Doctor. She mentioned, it was pretty amusing, the Gauth Confederacy, which sounds, to be fair, pretty beast. The Sada Proclamation, of course. I believe there's a nesting consciousness thrown in. Oh, and the Daleks.
Oh, and the Daleks. Yeah, she was not quite as impressive as Harriet Jones might have hoped she was. She never got a job off our unit, tell you that much.
That's terrible. Like, literally, they were offering anybody jobs by the point that we're at.
Yeah, they just passed by Rose and Ryan.
Oh, that'd be so awkward. Like, they offer one to Grandpa, like when Ryan, hey, could I get a job? Like, oh,
I think we're well staffed, aren't we? Yeah.
Also, we're also going to need your CUID. Make sure you're from here, boy. Yeah, I don't think UNIT was looking into her at this point. But I guess it's all well and good because she was going to go in the another dimension anyway.
Yeah, things are looking somewhat bleak because the Sycorax, I mean, to be honest, bruh, they're not interested in any of this type of compassion.
The highfalutin peace.
You're not wrong. Because, like we mentioned, Harriet Jones went up with Alex, the Major, and the scientist civilian. And both the civilian and Blake are killed by the Sycorax. And yeah, I think with some sort of whip-like weapon
It was this electric whip thing that reminded me a lot of the plasma whip.
I was thinking the same thing. It has a same look. If anyone listening played Ratchet and Clank back in your youth, you know.
And you had a better childhood than some.
Yeah, you're not wrong. So yeah, things are looking pretty bleak. Rose, despite the fact that she can name drop the dialects in the Gauth, it's not helping much. I mean, the universe is a vastly big place. So hey, maybe the Sycorax don't even know the Gauth or the dialects, so maybe they're all the luckier for it. But we do get a pretty fun sequence, because all the while when Rose is talking to the Sycorax, Alex is there helping translate back and forth. And then it reaches a point where it turns out the Sycorax seem to quote unquote stop talking, and I forget the name of the language, but they start talking what sounds like English, and that is when Rose realizes, hey, apparently the TARDIS translator is working now, so maybe the Doctor, who was unconscious, but they brought him back to the TARDIS because they thought the world was ending and it'd be the only safe place to be. Like literally, Mickey, Rose, and Jackie are going to hide out with the Doctor's unconscious body in the TARDIS while the Earth is being destroyed, so it's so funny.
Yeah, the only reason Jackie wasn't here is because she had gone out to get more supplies, because they were bringing food in. Now, TARDIS has a kitchen, but maybe the Doctor never showed Rose the kitchen or how to get there. But it shows up in some comic books and it's mentioned in some places.
Well, I have to say, based on my recollection of School Union, maybe Rose would have been very interested in the kitchen.
Yeah, she did enjoy the job then, and perhaps she'd only be interested in the kitchen that made food for her. But either way, they're in the TARDIS as it gets poured up. Rose walks out. She thinks she's just still on Earth because the TARDIS didn't move itself. It just poured up by the Sycorax ship. She walks out. Mickey follows her. They realize they're on the Sycorax ship. And Mickey, with very good reflexes, is able to close the TARDIS door, which probably saves all types of trouble. It gives the Doctor time to fully come to consciousness with the tea that's spilled being warmed by the TARDIS and the vapors being inhaled by the Doctor. All of that was accidental, but it worked out so well in timing with Rose's attempts to get the Sycorax to leave the planet.
Yeah, and what I really like about that scene is, one, how bleak it is, because Harriet Jones, she has no power over the Sycorax. She can't do anything. She was up there as like us representative, but she literally can't do a thing. I mean, Rose tries to help, but she can't really do anything. And then pretty much as soon as the Doctor walks out of the TARDIS and starts talking, you can sort of see the relief on their faces because they pretty much think, oh hey, we're saved. Certainly you can see that relief on Rose's face. And it's really great seeing only David Tennant just talking and talking and talking. And you sort of see the type of Doctor he is. And he's just so much fun. There's such an energy to him. Not that the Ninth Doctor didn't have an energy to himself, because he certainly did. But Tennant's energy is just sort of different, and you can really feel it in the opening scene.
Yeah, it's really quite palpable, his energy. He, as he says, he has the gift of gab. He's just going on and on and on. At one point, he starts paraphrasing The Lion King to try to convince the Sycorax to give humans a chance to grow and learn and become more. And I must say, the Sycorax did not have any Christmas spirit in their house, because none of that was moving them.
Yeah, and then it got to the point where the Doctor had a one-on-one duel. And by duel, I guess I mean sword fight, with the leader of the Sycorax. And it's a fun scene. The Doctor also had the sword fight since, what, the Mask of Mandragora? No, I guess technically it would have been Androids of Terror. And I'm sure there was a sword fight in between, but that's the last one I remember.
Yeah, I'm sure something had to have come up in between, but I don't, off the top of my head, know either.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine the 7th Doctor getting into a sword fight with someone, but hey, always possible, I guess.
Maybe it was the last one, because I can't imagine the 5th Doctor doing it either.
I mean, why have a sword fight when you can just play a game of cricket, am I right?
The 5th Doctor is a lot of fun, but the sword fight has some strange filming in it. Near the end, there's a section of the fight where both are shown in slow motion as they're about to attack each other. And it looks kind of goofy, but it's all in good fun. It is, after all, a Christmas episode. And it's still, at the end of the day, very serious takes.
I mean, yeah, you might say it's all in good fun, but the Doctor does get his hand cut off.
Yeah, he gets his hand cut off, but there's literally no blood.
Now, men still bleed. They don't have time to bleed.
And it's a garbage excuse, but my excuse for this is that because he's in his first 18 hours of regeneration, as he says, he's able to grow his hand back. It's just a thing, it happens. But he says he's in his first 18 hours, so that's why he's able to do that. Maybe the wound automatically cauterized itself before the hand grew back. So maybe that's why there's no blood. It's, like I said, a garbage excuse, but it's the best I have.
Yeah, and we do learn some tidbits of this new doctor. One, he has a new hand that we grew, and it's a fighting hand, which is always a funny line, just the way he says it.
Yeah, he pictured a nice southern drawl, just as it's a fighting hand.
Hey, it's just out of nowhere, it's just funny.
And his new fighting hand notwithstanding, this is not the last we see of his other hand, not by a long shot. So just keep that in the back of your mind.
Yeah, you're not wrong. And we also see that the Doctor, despite his very bubbly, talkative persona, he's not afraid to go hard, because he wins the sword fight, but then being the somewhat sore loser he seems to be, the Sycorax leader attempts to strike at the Doctor again, and using, what was it, an orange? Which whole funny subplot about Jackie with, I think, the grocery, and this is random fruits and vegetables just in her pockets. It's just so funny and random. But using something, orange, satsuma, something, tangerine even, is able to hit some button, and understand that this is a fight outside, above London, so it's sort of all dramatic and such. But it's able to hit some type of button, and I'm not sure why or how he knew the button would cast that exact part of the platform to withdraw, but hey, it did. Sycorax leader falls to his death, and then the Doctor has a line like, "Oh, no second chances, I'm that type of man."
No second chances, that's the sort of man I am.
And that's a really strong line, and like I said, it's nice to see his like bubbly, talkative persona, and then boom, it's just like straight serious. And I really appreciate that, because you can see down the line that type of persona becoming more and more prevalent at times. So it's nice to see an early indication of what he's like.
I do wonder how much they kind of softened it, though, a lot like Capaldi, because he's this whole no second chances throughout the early half of the season, but during the rest of David Tennant's time, he seems to give second chances every other day. I don't think he said this whole line as he's told it, or phrase it that way. But nonetheless, it is a quite strong start to characterizing this incarnation.
Yeah, so it's really nice seeing the Doctor here, and like we said, for the first 40 or so minutes, he was unconscious and he pops up and does his thing. Harriet Jones and company are all sent safely back down to Earth. And he encourages the Sycorax to leave, and there's more to it. It's a pretty good speech.
Yeah, more specifically, he tells them to leave, and when they talk of the Earth, because he knows they will, he just wants them to let everyone else know it is defended, which is a very strong line. And obviously the Doctor's defended Earth loads of times. I'm sure a lot of alien species probably know at this point, but certainly this is a very public proclamation. Hey, I'm the Doctor. Hey, I'm going to defend Earth, whoever comes for it. So that's how he probably would have gotten out.
And not only that, but the Doctor probably wanted it to get out, which probably adds to his anger. And the anger comes from the fact that this Torchwood thing that's been referenced a handful of times throughout the episode. I mean, we still don't know what Torchwood is. Is it the name of the laser? Is it the technology? We don't know. But whatever Torchwood is, utilizes some type of alien laser that, despite the fact that the Sycorax ship is retreating, and the Doctor, in a way, sort of promised him safe passage, Harriet Jones thought otherwise, and with this laser, she authorized it to blow up the Sycorax ship, and the Doctor was not at all pleased.
No, and the Doctor and Harriet Jones get into a confrontation about how, from Harriet's perspective, the Doctor's a great man, but he's not there all the time. She had just seen 2 men die, while, as she phrases it, he was asleep. Which is obviously terribly unfair to the Doctor, but from her perspective, she did just have those men who were good men die. So it's a huge philosophical conundrum, the question of who's right between the Doctor and Harriet, because in some ways where the Doctor's right, at least on one count, that shooting the Sycorax ship, I would argue he's right, that it was wrong to shoot the Sycorax ship as it was retreating. Harriet's response is, oh, they were just going to go warn other species about Earth, and meaning they would come to us. But I mean, like, what did they expect? They're sending, as the Doctor says, they're sending probes out. Earth is being very noisy. Eventually, if aliens actually existed, and it turns out they do, they're going to have to face that. They can't just now become isolationist. especially when, technically speaking, she wasn't even elected to make this decision. This was something she did unilaterally, something which could literally have galactic consequences if a higher alien court, for example, knew about this.
Yeah, it's not an easy decision, and it's one of the things which you can see both sides to it, and I think it makes it all the more interesting. Because yeah, on the one side, you want to find yourself agreeing with people like the Doctor and Rose, who are sort of disgusted with Harriet Jones's actions. Remember, the Doctor said that Harriet Jones ushers in the golden age of Britain.
And as Harriet Jones says, that comes with a cost. She had some snapping lines during this conversation.
Yeah, it's a damn shame that she was just looking a bit tired, though.
And that might have been where the Doctor went a little too far. The Doctor tells Harriet Jones that he goes on a career with just 6 words, and in fact, he is able to do so. He whispers to her aide, who has been witnessing the events of the episode, Alex, "Don't you think she looks tired?" Which eventually causes what, a vote of confidence?
Yeah, just those words pile out of control, and then there's a whole issue of a health crisis. And hey, luckily, nothing happens because of that. Certainly no future prime minister gets power, and there's no tackler for it. Never happen. Yeah, great job, Doctor, interfering in human politics, and this is what you get.
Yeah, if you're going to interfere in human politics, at least have a Marxist-Leninist get in power.
Or Trotskyist.
No. But yeah, so much for Britain's golden age. It could have been so impressive. But in some ways, you would say the Doctor's hubris caused the destruction of it.
Yeah, I just felt bad for Jackie. They went to 18 quid a week unless they get another prime minister just as economically savvy. It's so funny. Again, we just get through a fun sequence with the Doctor, a sword fight, and everyone's happy that they survived and Earth is safe, and then Harriet Jones just has a Sycorax ship blown up, which is then our dramatic again. So there's ups and downs here.
Yeah, the down being a war crime.
Well, yeah, you're not wrong. But hey, then at least we get to see the Doctor choose some outfits for himself.
Yeah, this scene was really fun to see again, because it's a scene we haven't seen all that often. Obviously, we watched on, at this point, I suppose it probably would have been BBC America, back when this was originally aired, and maybe this scene was there when it originally aired in the US. But the version of this episode that is usually shown on TV is a cut down 44 or so minute version instead of the whole 60-minute version. Now, I don't know all the scenes they cut, but one of the scenes they tend to cut is the scene where the Doctor's picking out an outfit, and we actually get to see the whole dressing area of the TARDIS with all of the outfits. And the image is kind of garish with how it looks like it's going both up and down forever, but at the same time it is kind of cool looking to have this perspective of the TARDIS that we almost never see in live action.
Yeah, not only that, but I think the whole sequence is nice too, because there's Mickey, Jackie, and Rose having a Christmas dinner where the Doctor's choosing, and we actually see him choose 2 outfits, a blue suit and a brown suit, and you see him holding them both up, and you'll see it here too with the magic of editing. But it's a nice sequence, it's a nice show of, hey, this is the Doctor's new wardrobe. And I also really like the music in the background too, which, what did you say, was actually made for the episode?
Yes, the song during the wardrobe sequence is entitled Song for Tan, being, of course, the 10th Doctor, which was composed by Murray Gold and sung by Tim Phillips, apparently. And Tim Phillips does things where he's not in a band or anything, so they just got this guy to sing for a song made for an episode. So it's all quite fun.
And I think it's a really nice sequence. Like James said, the TARDIS outfit room looks somewhat garish, but honestly, I like it. It's nice, there's some character to it. And just that scene where he's going in his new classic-looking outfit to dinner with Rose and her family. It's just a nice sequence. And then we actually see the Doctor. I don't know what other Christmas traditions are over in the UK, but there's little Christmas cracker things that pop open. Those are sort of playful looking. I'm not saying we don't have them over here in the US. I'm just saying I've never seen one in my life. I do hear about them in Harry Potter books, though.
Where's the crackers, the smashing gold fan? But no, it's nice to see the Doctor just enjoying the night, enjoying the dinner, basically almost like he's a friend.
You know, and it's sort of funny, actually. If we flash forward a bit, it's nice seeing this Doctor doing this, and it's almost like the last thing we see the 14th Doctor doing, when he's just hanging out with Dana and her family at the end of what would have been the giggle.
Yes, it was the end of the giggle where
So it's some nice, in a way, it's almost like a nice bookend type thing, like beginning and end. I mean, technically, yeah, they're different actors, but with the same actors, it's sort of a nice bookend type thing.
until it's all and done in the upcoming reality war, but we'll see.
Yeah, hey, we'll talk about that. I'm still hoping that Claire with her other TARDIS will come to save the day.
No, Johnny's coming back.
Yeah, hey, it's been a little while. But yeah, it's a nice little end sequence. It even starts snowing, which actually isn't snow. It's ash from the Sycorax ship, which sort of puts a damper on the Doctor's holiday spirits. But hey, there you go. And one thing I also really like about the ending is that the Doctor wasn't entirely sure that Rose would still want to travel with him because of the fact that he regenerated. Because keep in mind, in Born Again, he asked Rose that if he could change, would she have wanted him to change back? And she said yes. It's like, oh, I imagine disappointed for him to hear. So I think some of that uncertainty is still within him at this moment too. Yeah, sure, he may have impressed Rose by defeating the Sycorax leader, but you can just sense that he may not be sure that she still wants to travel with him. And it's nice to see that, despite her own difficulties, that she is certainly looking forward to the next adventure.
Yeah, and it's done in a way where you can already tell Rose might have some more romantic content with this version of the Doctor too. It always seems kind of awkward when she says, "Oh no, of course I want to come back with you," and the Doctor's, "Oh, that's great," and it just all feels. And even Mickey's like, "Oh, you're navigating on Earth, are you?" So it's not all good for everyone, but at least the Doctor and Rose are happy.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that's all that matters. Who needs Mickey's happiness when the Doctor and Rose can be happy? We'll see down the line that's pretty consistent.
And who needs Queen Victoria's happiness when the Doctor and Rose are happy?
You're not wrong. But I guess before we give our final thoughts on this one, and as you can imagine, they're generally pretty positive. But what was the timeline? I know this timeline looks a little more complex than most of them do.
That is life as a time traveler. Well, as listeners know, the TARDIS Wiki has a personal timeline for each Doctor, including the extensive extended media, ranging from the comic books, comic strips, Big Finish, and BBC audio, the multiple book ranges, and everything in between. Doctor Who canon, insofar as it actually has one, is a jumbled mess, and has been forever. So I just like to see where the stories we're discussing fit into the universe as a whole, as continuity and the narrative timeline has always been of interest to me. And at first glance, this isn't all that bad, this one. Right before this, we've previously discussed it, is Born Again, the Children in Need parcel, released a little over a month before this one was. Not very long. You can go watch our discussion, or you could just go watch this parcel. It's just 5 minutes, cutting out the credits. It's just a nice little scene between the 10th Doctor and Rose, which gives some additional information before this episode kicks off. Right after this, and this is why it's so fun the way Doctor Who and the TARDIS Wiki do things, is First Day of the Doctor, more exactly a segment of that. That is a text story that was published in Doctor Who, the official annual 2024 from September 2023. And this just has first-person perspectives from 4 or 5 different Doctors on the first day of the Doctor, the first day being the incarnation in question. It mentions that in this section that the 10th Doctor beat the Sycorax leader and had a nice Christmas dinner with Rose and her family before heading off again. And so it's a very small thing. Some would say it's barely a story, but nonetheless, it's interesting. And what's even more interesting is that during this episode, the Christmas invasion, 2 other stories actually take place. One is after the TARDIS was drawn up to the Sycorax ship, a story entitled The Christmas Invasion happens. And this is a short story starring the 3rd Doctor from 2016's 12 Doctors of Christmas, which was a Christmas anthology book. We have a Halloween anthology book, Tales of Terror, but this is a nice Christmas-themed one. 12 stories, 300-something pages, 1 story for each Doctor. And the 3rd Doctor meets Jackie and deals with some Sycorax problems, while the 10th Doctor's actually up on the ship dealing with the main Sycorax problem. And I have to imagine, and maybe I'm wrong, but I have to imagine the 3rd Doctor, given his personality, might have difficulty with someone like Jackie. I mean, it's a difficult situation all around. Apparently, Jackie's wondering with him at the time is Joe and South Banton. Jackie's wondering if Joe and South Banton know Rose and Mickey, who have also changed and regenerated. So she has no idea what's going on, which, to be fair, it's a very confusing situation, so who can really blame her? She's had a day. That, for the record, is written by Jacqueline Rayner. The second story that takes place during this episode is a very interesting one, The Final Darkness, which were the events of this episode told through the point of view of a Sycoraxian scribe who was detailing the exploration into this new planet and the events that happen. This came out in one of the Doctor Who Files books, which were these very short 7-pound books that came out in 2006, 2007, made for children. This was in the Doctor Who Files Sycorax, which just gives information on the Sycorax, so it's nice big pictures, has maybe a short story in it that's new, and it's just made for children. But luckily, all of these short stories in these books were collected in Heroes and Monsters collection, which came out August 2015, which is a good thing because we never would have been able to own any of these in an actual copy physically if they were not collected, because these things are probably not going to be easy to find, especially in the US almost 20 years after they came out.
So yeah, it's interesting that there are two concurrent stories that take place during this, and it just sort of adds to, I guess, the depth of the lore. It just shows how much you can fit in if you really want to. And I think, despite the fact that maybe neither one of those are going to be all that quote-unquote important, I still think it's fun that they exist.
They might not be important, but I must say the Sycorax one sounds kind of dark, because according to the Sycorax point of view, they realized that the Earthlings had sent missiles at them, and literally they're just chanting, the Sycorax are strong, and then the story ends with the phrase being cut off as the ship blows up. So it's kind of rather dark for a children's book, honestly.
Yeah, that's a nice optimistic way to go into your Christmas day. And yeah, as an overall experience, I think the Christmas Invasion is a really solid story. I just appreciate a lot about it. There's some quiet moments at the beginning which work because the supporting cast works. And it just has a lot going for it. I love the introduction, or I guess the proper introduction to David Tennant's Doctor. And the whole sequence with him talking to the Sycorax, talking about how the whole blood control is just generally scare tactics. It's just a lot of fun. And yeah, you see a little bit of the darkest side of the Doctor too when he talks about him being a no second chances type of man. So there's a lot going for this one. I've always appreciated it. It's really hard to think about this story in comparison to other Tenth Doctor stories just because one is a Christmas Pastor, two it's his first full-length story. But it's certainly a strong one. And I think it gives a good indication later on of what type of Doctor we're going to get with David Tennant. So yeah, I would just say 2 thumbs up. Certainly among one of the stronger Christmas pastors of the NuWho era.
This really only has one competition, and that's the completely different A Christmas Carol, the first Christmas pastor for Matt Smith, which is different in almost every way, but also holds up extremely well.
And Matt Smith is different as a Doctor in many ways too, so it all works out. Yeah, there's been a bit of a dodgy history of Christmas pastors. Some of them are quite decent, some of them are more middling. In fact, I would argue probably most of them are more middling, at least the ones I remember. But then you get nice little gifts like Last Christmas, which despite having problems is, I would say, generally stronger.
And it also has Merry Christmas to everybody in it.
That it may indeed. But it all comes from the Christmas Invasion, because, I mean, there weren't any Christmas pastors. Well, I guess you could argue the Festival for Stephen was a Christmas pastor.
Yeah, you could, but yes, if this had been successful, they probably would have continued doing them, but obviously this was a huge success for an episode.
Yeah, and I like the tradition of Christmas pastors for Doctor Who. It's just so fun. And of course, they changed those instead to New Year's pastors for a little bit until, I guess, what would have been the Church and Ruby Road being the first Christmas pastor in quite some time. So, despite the fact that neither one of us were particularly a big fan of that story, it's so nice to see the tradition come back. And hopefully down the line we can see a more quality Christmas pastors But like I said, it all comes from Christmas Invasion. This set the mark quite nicely.
Yeah, no, this is held up so much by the supporting cast, and the supporting cast works so well because of the entire fourth season. This is what you are able to accomplish when you put time into your characters. I do not think A Christmas Past Today with Cherry and Ruby's mothers would work nearly as well. They'll probably just end up just using all of Unit. So either way, it wouldn't feel the same, but this episode is extremely fun to revisit. It feels like in some ways it's aged, but not in any way that negatively affects it. Like, yeah, you can tell this is a while ago now, but the characterization, which Russell T Davies was so strong at during the first era, is so good during these episodes. You can disagree with the choices that the Doctor and Harriet Jones made during the final bit of the episode, but you can see why they made it. And that's because of how strong that characterization is for both of their characters and really for everyone in this episode. This truly is a pinnacle of Doctor Who Christmas passers. Certainly in the top 3, most likely in the top 2. And at the end of the day, maybe it might be the very best. It's just a very well done parcel, and hey, Christmas trees be spinning. How can you argue with that?
And I would say that you couldn't. Those Christmas trees are a vengeful bunch.
But we'll get some pretty fun Christmas trees in the next Christmas parcel.
I don't doubt it. But of course, that's just our thoughts on the Christmas Invasion. You can let us know down below here on YouTube, or you can reach out to us at Brothers Mahoney what you thought about the Christmas Invasion, especially if you saw it live back in the day. I mean, we saw it live, but we would have been quite young. I forget when it aired over in the US. I'm assuming sometime in 2006, to be honest, but maybe they aired it 2005. So it's hard to think about us kids, what we would have thought about it. But still, like James said, it's a very fun episode, and it sets the standard, and I think it does a really good job setting the standard. And somewhat interestingly, next up is a arguably related story, because we are about to talk about the Ice Warriors, which features the second Doctor with Jamie and Victoria. And if I recall, this was a 6-episode story, as a lot of Patrick Troughton's stories were. It's a 6-episode story, which we've only seen once, and I believe some of it's animated. Like, was it 2 episodes?
Yes, 2 episodes of the 6 are animated.
And recently, or somewhat recently, we spoke about the Abominable Snowman, and I think 5 of the 6 episodes were animated. So it's sort of be nice to go to a story in which majority of it is actually Troughton in his live action greatness. And honestly, I don't remember much about the Ice Warriors. I remember far more about the Seeds of Death, which is the Ice Warriors' second appearance, than I do about the Ice Warriors itself. So I'm sort of interested in revisiting this one and seeing how it goes down.
Yeah, I don't really remember much at all. I just remember it was kind of snowy and very cold looking. But really, besides that and some annoying computers, I don't remember much about this story. But to be fair, we saw what at this point 6, 7 years ago.
Honestly, I don't really recognize time like that. Like, something from 3 years ago and 8 years ago seems pretty much the same to me, which might be a me problem, but it's not good, tell you that much.
Yeah, it doesn't sound very good. But either way, it's been a while since we've seen it. We can leave it at that.
Yeah, so Ice Warriors, second Doctor, be there. But yeah, that's all we've got. This, as always, has been Michael.
And I've been James.
You've been enjoying the Brothers Mahoney. Have yourself a pleasant day.
And thank you for listening.